episode of Beating Alpha. This is episode 84, and we have a very special guest on. In front of you, you're going to see in a few seconds, is Max Fitzgerald. So he's a broker and CEO of Kraft and Bauer Real Estate Co., an independent full-service brokerage for this, again, sorry for the broken English, discerning clientele. He's from California, Los Angeles. So just happy to have you on. I know we're going to cover some, great topics, everything real estate today. So happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Man, all these big words just making things difficult for me, right?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Try not to make your life so difficult. But you nailed it.
I'm just kidding. Listen, first question first, right? So like the beginning stages of real estate, creating the brokerage. First of all, how did you came across this idea that you need to create this brokerage? What happened prior to that? Is that your first business, second business? Can you tell your story a little bit to the audience?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So I'm, to give the audience perspective, I'm 32 years old. I'm still relatively young. I got started in real estate as an apprentice. So I met someone who I went to college with, although he was about 4 years older than I was. And at the time that I met him, he was a one-man show. So he was a real estate broker. He was building homes throughout Los Angeles. He owned apartments throughout Los Angeles. So he was kind of a jack of all trades. So real estate was always an industry I wanted to get into. I thought it was, my passion sort of resonated towards there, but I never wanted to be a singular real estate agent at a big company. That was never something, my intention. So I basically agreed to work for him for free in return for him to teach me basically everything that he knew. So I worked for him for about 10 months. I lived at my parents' house, but absorbed as much information as I could. And then over the course of about 5 years, I really started to gain my niche. I was doing pretty well, but I also had more of an entrepreneurial itch to build a company of my own. So I got my broker's license and then opened up Kraft and Bauer, which is a residential real estate brokerage. We're based in Los Angeles, but we also have an office in Northern California, an office in Austin, Texas, and soon to be in Phoenix, Arizona. Opened up the doors and really pivoted to being a manager, an operator. And it's something that I've really enjoyed doing over the last couple of years here now.
Beautiful, beautiful. So again, no Pink book help you to kind of open your eyes to the real estate world, and probably you don't have a clue what Pink book I'm talking about, but that's Rich Dad Poor Dad, because that's a lot of real estate people who are in the industry, investors, house flippers, or they're realtors. They talk about the Pink book most of the time, but that's awesome. Can you give some takeaways again, because being at that young age, to build a company, which again is growing successfully now in multiple states, which I congratulate you on that. Can you give some takeaways, like what helped you to scale your business, so fast, being at that age?
So the biggest thing was, so to take a step back, there's Compass is probably the biggest real estate brokerage in the United States that has significantly gained market share, and their biggest value proposition is technology. And they're doing a really good job at executing on that strategy. So the person that I opened up the business with, his name is Dominic Labriola. Him and I have been friends for 6 years. I mean, really when I got started in real estate. And he was at Compass prior to him and I basically starting the business together. So a couple of big things that we wanted to execute when we opened our doors was, number one, we had to be a tech forward office. That's just the way the industry is trending. And that's what real estate agents are really resonating towards. It's, hey, what are you going to do as a brokerage, as a company, to help me scale my business in the most efficient way possible? And a lot of that is through technology. So before we onboarded any agents, we had to make sure that our infrastructure was in place and we had all of the technology tools built into our systems here that our agents could use and really efficiently make their days easier and easier. So that was really number one, was getting that good infrastructure in place. And then number two was really creating a good company culture. And that's a really big one that's missed oftentimes, especially in real estate brokerages where all of the agents are essentially their own bosses and competing oftentimes for the same sellers, the same buyer. So it can be a really competitive environment. So what we've done instead is, and then COVID hit. So especially this year, we had to pivot and keep leaning in on being a collaborative, welcoming, education kind of first company. I mean, we collaborate as a company on a lot of different efforts. We don't recruit a lot of agents in the same cities and neighborhoods, so there's not a lot of overlap between what agents are doing. Mm-hmm. We meet once a week as a company at least, so we're very hands-on with our agents. We teach them a lot. We groom them to be, if an agent is a C real estate agent, we really put them in our little vacuum, in our bubble, teach them, encourage them, in an individual setting and in a group kind of company setting. And we can bring that C player to a B player, right? So our company culture, I think it's harder to explain if you're not in it as one of our agents, but that's been a really big value proposition that has helped us scale the business, because it really becomes word of mouth. It becomes, hey, Craft & Bauer is a really great company. It has good tech, but just generally, like, I've really taken my business and now have a good understanding of a lot of things that I didn't in the past. So it's things like that that help us scale the business over the last couple of years.
Got it. Awesome. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on, putting systems in place for your business to make sure that you're getting those growth moments in the business? Like, can you talk about some of those systems?
Sure. Yeah. And to get a little specific here. So one of the biggest ones that we have is our website. And our website is tied into our CRM system, our client relationship kind of software. So when someone lands on our website, on our search site specifically, and kind of pokes around and then leaves, we have artificial intelligence baked into the website that will then either email that lead or text that lead automatically on behalf of a real estate agent within our brokerage. And, that we're getting really tremendous results from that consistent follow-up on the artificial technology side. So that's been a really big one. Our CRM software is really great. It allows us to basically take our entire database and then sort them into segments and do a lot of more automated things. So I would say our real estate website, our search site, and then our CRM service are probably the three biggest ones that we currently utilize.
Okay, got it. So we'll see how the AI works here, because I'm just on the website currently. So we'll test it out. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. If you go to search.craftbauer.com, it's going to prompt you to, as all real estate sites, it's going to prompt you to log in with Facebook or create a profile. Yeah. So once you do that, poke around and then leave, and then see how that AI engages with you.
Awesome. So again, on that note, because again, artificial intelligence technology is just like, it touches so many points in a business, and going further and further, along, looking in the future, I think a lot of businesses, because, like the biggest businesses before, if you're going to look like 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, was like the railroads, the factories, manufacturing, anything in that nature. And now the biggest businesses everything is digital. So Google, Facebook, Amazon, right? Kind of those type of services that everything is going online, and they're using more and more softwares and, development on that point. So what are you looking from your own business perspective? Any ideas that you're planning to I'm not asking for secret, plans that you're planning to do, by implementing, the technology, but maybe you can give some insight. What are you planning to implement when it comes from the technology standpoint into the business to make sure that you can scale it even further?
Yeah, that's a great question. it's a complicated question, especially being a really small company. I mean, we're by no means a very big company. This is my best answer to your question. It's very difficult to foresee where technology is going to be in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, especially for real estate. I think things like voice, right? You have Alexa and things like that. I think that's going to really start to dominate the home atmosphere of consumers. So if it's like, Alexa, find me a real estate agent, who does Alexa go to? And I think that's going to really disrupt a lot of things on the technology side, or on the, just your market share side as a real estate agent. So getting in front of that, whether it's building a brand, right, either as a personal real estate agent or a company, so people have you or your company more top of mind. So instead of saying, Alexa, find me a real estate agent, it's, hey, Alexa, find me a Keller Williams real estate agent in Los Angeles, or XYZ real estate agent. So I think that's really big. That's a tactic that you can get in front of disruption in the industry. And it's hard to answer your question. I can tell you that Google, advertising on Facebook, advertising on Google, advertising on LinkedIn, these are very low cost, CPMs to get in front of the consumer's attention. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we're aggressively taking advantage of. And basically we're spending all of our advertising money digitally right now. We're not really doing much for mailers or your traditional marketing. So it's kind of forecasting where things could be as a small company on the tech side, but also really taking advantage of what's very low cost CPMs to get in front of your end user on the current modern platforms that are essentially free. It's free to get on Instagram and make a video of yourself, and the distribution is great. So those are some things that we're thinking of and currently implementing.
Got it. Good. I love the approach, because you're already just tapping into existing networks, which is, again, there's a lot of people, in those networks existing right now. So, it's the best way to do. Of course, like, as you said, just, you don't know what's ahead of us. So, but at the same time, just keeping the track of what's going on, as you mentioned, Alexa, and how do you rank, in the top positions when people start looking, for those realtors through those technologies.
Yeah. And to also echo that point, COVID it's been a really interesting time in 2020, because now things like virtual open houses have become a lot more accepted. Walking through a house and FaceTiming with your client to see, so your client really never sees the house. Like, things like that are becoming a lot more accepted. And I think on the technology side, like, it's going to continue to skew more and more towards, whether it's a Matterport, so you can see the entire house in 3D, or virtual walkthroughs or virtual open houses. Like, these things are not going to go away once COVID goes away. And I think that's just the way that the industry is going to trend. And there's going to be, I think, a lot of technology and systems built on top of, hey, seeing things virtually is now a lot more accepted. So now let's figure out how to capture more of that attention. So that's kind of where I foresee real estate going in a 2 to 3 year window.
Got it. All right. So you emphasized kind of on, the company's culture, and that is very important to you. And of course, for your business success, to make sure that you build the right culture for your own business. So can you talk about, the process behind putting the right team together? So let's say, from finding somebody, how do you evaluate if they're fitting, for the current position? So those type of things.
They have to be kind people. That's number one. They have to basically fit with our company culture, right? We don't onboard, even if you sell $100 million of real estate a year, but you're just not a nice person. It would be a very difficult decision to bring you on, because maintaining a really good collaborative company culture is something that really sets us apart from other real estate brokerages. So I would say, first and foremost, they have to be kind and be good at what they do. And just be willing to learn, and to, kind of because a lot of the systems that we've kind of implemented at Craft & Bauer are not, they're very robust, and it's basically every single piece of real estate technology that a real estate agent could possibly use. So if you don't really take that on and use the systems that have been built out to your advantage, then it's going to be a really difficult time helping someone help scale their business, is what I'm trying to get at. So they have to be good people. They have to be willing to take on more of a forward-facing sort of technology position in their day-to-day business. And they have to kind of be good at what they do. I mean, we're a small company with not a lot of offices throughout the country. So I don't know. We're very selective about who we bring on, especially being a younger company. But you have to be good, kind people.
Yeah. I heard that, more than a few times. Everybody, that I spoke about, they always say, if you're looking for somebody to hire, always choose an attitude over skill, because the skill you can teach, but the attitude is something that you can't teach. So yeah, what you said is super important. So can you talk about, again, as you mentioned, being kind of young, small company, which again, at the same time, maybe it looks like you're young and small in your eyes, but for some people, just like myself, you're growing rapidly fast, and I see the team that you're having on board, so you're doing super well. So, but of course, there's different levels, right? So talking about, for the small companies who are looking to grow, again, leveraging other existing sources of, potentially maybe selling properties, because I see you have leverage global partners, on site as well. So can you talk about the process? How do you work with them, and how do they benefit you and your business?
Sure. So Leverage Global Partners is a network of independently owned and operated real estate brokerages across the globe. So back to one of your original questions about, hey, what were the things that you guys put in place early on? This was one of the big kind of key relationships. So being an independently owned and a small company, one of our biggest disadvantages when our agents are trying to secure a listing specifically is, hey, what kind of reach, what kind of relationships do you have, not only in California, but in the United States? And how are you going to put my house in front of, a massive audience, right? And that's something that a bigger brokerage does very, very well, just because they have tons of locations, tons of agents. So we recognized that vulnerability early on, and we wanted to kind of combat it. So this was one of the ways we did it. So Leverage basically vets a lot of real estate brokerages that want to join them. You have to be independently owned and operated. But once you're part of that group, then you become a representative. So like we're a Los Angeles representative. There's only, I think, 3 other brokerages in LA that are part of Leverage, but you're part of this really robust network of big and small brokerages. So you get that component. You also they do a lot of PR work for us. So if we wanted to get placement in magazines and publications and, become more of an authority figure on real estate, then, they assist with that. So they're basically a crutch for a lot of small real estate brokerages to beat a lot of the bigger guys. I mean, their services exceed some of the really big brokerages around town, and it tremendously helps us win more business just because of our affiliation.
Yeah, got it. So again, for the people who are planning to purchase a property in California, planning to buy something, again, I looked at the property, so maybe it's not going to be for everybody's pocket, but so the first question, why have you chose to sell kind of luxury properties, luxury residential properties against selling small duplexes or commercial property in the first place? Also,
good question. So we don't sell a ton of luxury properties. You can search for them on our website, but we've really found our niche as a company selling $1 million and under properties in Los Angeles. And in Northern California and the Central Valley of California, our median price point is in the $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 range. So we've chosen to attack that sort of price point. And it's more the agents that we currently have on board. Once we bring on more quote unquote luxury real estate agents, then we'll eventually get into those sectors as well. But I would much rather prefer being in the affordable side. That's you're reaching a larger audience or potential clients that you could work with in regards to buyers and sellers. Interest rates are very low right now, and that's really toggled to the people in that more affordable price point. So that's a niche that, before I started Craft and Bauer, I was pretty much in the up and coming neighborhoods and trying to capture appreciation and growth as different pockets in LA kind of appreciated and gentrified. So I was a big early adopter at buying things from a value add perspective. And I really got my start in apartments more than anything else. So I look at things a lot more analytically from a cap rate perspective, a GRM perspective. So I like kind of the niche that we've carved out for ourselves. It allows us to do a lot more volume than a $30 million spec house in the Hollywood Hills. It takes a very, very unique buyer. So to answer your question, that's kind of where our current head is at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so any plans to move to commercial property, like office space or retail, anything in that nature?
I think office space and retail are two areas I would not want to touch right now.
Yeah.
Office space in particular, I just think there's going to be a fundamental shift for companies because office space is basically their biggest overhead from a P&L perspective. So I just think that offices or companies are going to audit their books and say, well, COVID has proven that 90% of our workforce can work from home, and we don't need a 30,000 square foot office. Let's get a 10,000 square foot office. Let's save 80% in rent, and let's have a more flexible work schedule. And I think that's going to happen. That is going to happen, and you can start to see the early effects of that because a lot of people are moving out of Los Angeles, out of San Francisco, out of New York, and moving more into the areas where you can get a home for the same price, but with 2 extra bedrooms, a pool, and a front yard. So I just think there's going to be a shifting of the workplace commuting sort of dynamic. And I think offices are going to get hit hard. So I don't want to be in office space. I think retail's in more trouble than office space. So I like apartments for that reason. I mean, if you're talking commercial, I love apartments. I love covered land plays. I like development opportunities. I think that's more where you can realize more of a stable sort of investment. But I think offices and retail it's just a really tricky time for both of those sectors.
Yeah. All right. So talking about, kind of giving the buyer's guide, for the buyers. So if somebody's watching right now and thinking, listen, I have a budget of, $1 million, let's say, and I'm going to be looking for a brand new property, or that could be a secondhand, something in Los Angeles. So what will be kind of your advice for those people with that $1 million budget to like do's and don'ts, that they should be aware of when looking for the best property for themselves?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand your question because that's a very loaded question. So give me a little more context.
So basically, I have $1 million. I want to buy a property in Los Angeles. Like, What would you recommend? Like, I'm just looking for myself, have wife, 2 kids. Show me something like what we can buy, like, and what things we should be aware of, like neighborhoods, like foundation issues, like what are the things I should pay attention the most, and what other things are the goods that could give me, maybe there's an area coming up, in that part. Like what are the things that people should be aware of when they're buying a property from a good and a bad side?
So I think the biggest thing to be aware of as a buyer is, what does the neighborhood look like in 5 years, in 10 years, right? Keeping that sort of time frame in the back of your mind. So to get very specific with Los Angeles for 1 second. So an area like Culver City, I don't know how familiar you are with Culver City, but Culver is it's become a high-end neighborhood. A lot of tech, a lot of film companies like HBO have moved into Culver City over the last couple of years and has really appreciated in price. When I was growing up in Los Angeles, when I was 10, 11 years old, Culver City was not a great place to live. It was like a D minus, kind of C minus sort of neighborhood. But over the last 10 years, there's been a ton of gentrification. There's been a ton of employment opportunities. They've a ton of redevelopment in Culver City specifically. So now you can't really get into Culver City at $1 million budget. Now single families are like in the 1.7, 1.8 range. I think it's really expensive now. So if you're kind of forecasting, is this a good investment for me? You have to kind of realize that that a neighborhood, and I'm sure there's neighborhoods like this in Ireland too, that have already solidified themselves as an expensive neighborhood that will appreciate on a long-term hold, right? But if you're trying to realize some short-term appreciation on a 2 to 3 year hold, maybe not the best neighborhood to look, because you're already kind of buying at the top of the market and things are priced in, right? So, but one neighborhood over is an area called West Adams. This is a neighborhood directly to the east of Culver City by about 5 or 6 blocks. West Adams, on the other hand, you can buy a single family for $900,000, for $800,000, right? If it needs a little work. So, and there's also a lot of big institutional developers that are in the process right now as we speak of revitalizing the city. So if you can kind of forecast the way that West Adams has trended, it's really gained some appreciation. I mean, a single family 3 years ago was $500,000. Now it's $800,000, and it's 10 blocks away from Culver City, which is 1.8. So that's still a pretty big delta on a price point perspective to kind of catch up to. So if you're trying to bank on some short-term appreciation and really maximize some value, you kind of have to forecast where a neighborhood could potentially go in the next couple of years. And that takes a lot of knowledge, especially on your real estate agents, from where your real estate agent should, plays a role in this. But, if you can talk about, hey, these are the developments that are going on. These are the coffee shops. This is the kind of buyers that are moving into this neighborhood. So if you're only looking to hold this for 3 years, it could be a good investment opportunity. So that's kind of general point number one. When it comes to the actual buying process in California, I know this isn't a California specific podcast, but the purchase agreement has a lot of contingencies in there. So you get your offer accepted, you open up escrow, and then the first thing you do as a buyer is you go through inspections in Los Angeles. And if something's wrong with the house, if the foundation is cracked, to your point, if the roof is falling apart, then the contract allows you to cancel escrow and basically get your deposit back and move on with your merry way. So my biggest advice for buyers in California, and specifically Los Angeles, is it never hurts to look and it never hurts to make offers, because as long as you have your contingencies in place, you can always back out of the contract for really whatever reason.
Okay. So I'm just looking here at the moment at the Real Shift Radio podcast. So what do you guys have in, on that podcast? Like, what approach do you take in? Like, can you talk about, your podcast and, what pieces of those, golden nuggets people can find in your podcast?
Sure. So I really can't speak much on that. That's my business partner, Dominic Labriola's podcast, but he interviews a lot of different people in the real estate world in Los Angeles, brokers, agents, clients, architects, things like that. So it's really an all things real estate podcast.
Got it. So you have to make sure that you go, guys, and check it out. Again, Real Shift Radio podcast. It's on the website, craftbauer.com. Of course, the link is going to be down below, but I'm sure maybe you can find it on iTunes also. I'm not sure. But the question for you, again, 2020, kind of very interesting year, but at the same time, you're scaling and growing your business, by consistently putting the effort in, which is amazing. I'm happy to see that. And you mentioned like about, scaling your business and moving it towards other states at the same time. So what will be kind of your plans for this year, upcoming year? Like how big do you want to scale the current business?
Yeah. So within the next 45 days, we'll have both brokers' licenses in place. So within a 12-month window, where we currently at from a bandwidth perspective in terms of the upper management that we have in place, I would like to have 15 agents in Austin, 15 in Phoenix, and then grow the Los Angeles office or the California office, if we're considering both locations, Northern and Southern California, from 20 to about 50. That would be a really great point for us to kind of grow into, and it seems like we're trending in that direction. But on a 12-month window, that's where we want to be.
Beautiful, beautiful, and I'm sure it's going to happen. By the way it looks, again, by the current results, I can project at least, in my head that I think it's going to happen for you guys, and I wish you that, of course. So, listen, what will be kind of one thing that you want people to remember about you, and again, the legacy, like, because there's maybe a deeper meaning. I do understand you have the spirit, the gene of being an entrepreneur and a business oriented person, but what will be kind of this one thing that you always want people to remember about you?
So what I've really done well is I've been very patient and very conservative, and I graduated college and I moved back in with my parents and tried to save as much money as I could, because I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, whether it was being a real estate agent or starting a company. But I knew if I didn't have anything saved up, then I couldn't do either one of those things. So I had to be super, super disciplined when all of my friends from college were moving to, the beach in Santa Monica and all of these great places. I was still living at home, and that took a big gut punch, basically. So, but that discipline allowed me to, save money. And then finally, when I had the opportunity to be an intern, right, and work for free for 11 months, I did it and absorbed as much money as I could, or as much information as I could, and then translated that into building Craft and Bauer. So I think it was really just continued to be disciplined, but building things the right way. I mean, we don't skip any steps. We could recruit everyone under the sun and build this as quickly as we can, but that's just taking our time and making sure the infrastructure is in place before we move on to the next step. So I think it's just really doing things the right way, but having patience and humility to say, you know what, I'm taking short-term sacrifices to, that'll lead me to better things down the road.
Awesome. Great message. Great message. I appreciate you sharing that. So, and I'm sure the audience appreciate it too. So listen, I would like for people to kind of get to know you a little bit more and get to know your company and what you guys are all about, and kind of, I want them to, at the same time, to see your success. And I know a lot of people will get inspired by your success at the same time. So what will be those social media platforms that people can go and reach you out and find you?
Sure. On Instagram, it's my personal Instagram is max.fitzgerald. My Craft and Bauer is at Craft Bauer, Bauer. And I think the website is the best place to go, craftbauer.com. So those are the three biggest places.
Here you go. Here you go. So again, it's been a great, great time. I really appreciate you, staying here and, giving all the knowledge, the experience, the key takeaways on what it takes, to build a successful business. So like, it's awesome being at that young age, and accomplished what you accomplished so far. And I'm sure you're going to go beyond that, very fast by the way it looks, again, the way you're scaling the business. I mean, it's super awesome. So make sure, guys, that you go and follow Max on all the social medias. Go and check it out, the website, if you're looking to purchase something in California too. I appreciate the time, Max. It's been a great, great fun. For you guys, just one thing that I wanted to ask you, just if you share this episode with the person that you think this content might be valuable, please do that. And as always, I'm going to see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much.